Yo, yo, yo. Hey guys, welcome back to another awesome edition of the Best Practices Show podcast. One of the cool things I get to do is meet some of the superheroes in dentistry that are really doing some amazing things. And today, Dr. Christian Coachman brings in a good friend, Markus Tröltzsch, and he challenges us with what our footprint looks like ecologically on the environment and what we leave behind as dentists. It's powerful. So please listen up. I hope you guys enjoy it, and we'll see you soon. Hey guys, welcome back to the Best Practices Show podcast. You know the jam around here. Our job is to find the coolest people in the world and help you with some great information to improve your practice and your life. And if you've ever thought about it, dentistry is a very noble profession with some superheroes. And our job is to bring you to them and their cause and their story. And today, in our ongoing series with Dr. Christian Coachman, he has a very cool friend with an amazing journey and amazing movement. And Christian, I'll let you do the honors and introduce our amazing guest.
Got it. Fantastic. Yes, I'm very happy to host my dear friend Markus Tröltzsch from Germany. Just very briefly, Markus is an amazing, successful surgeon dentist, very successful practice, very busy practice. He's a researcher on this field of surgery, implants, and so on, publisher, many articles, speaker, is on the lecturing circuit. But today, I think we need to take advantage of his precious time to talk about something else that he also started that I think it's just beautiful. It's a project called Greenviu, how to bring sustainability to dentistry. How to help dentists become more environment friendly, how to at least increase our awareness in this topic. So Markus, thank you so much for being here, but thank you above all for putting energy into a topic that is so important to all humans and to our dear planet. So tell me how this started. Why did you start Greenviu? And when did it start?
Friends, thank you so much for inviting me here. Kirk, that was one of the most beautiful intros I've ever heard into a podcast. Thank you so much for being part of this. And Chris, you have been a role model for me in so many aspects, especially the energy you put into building up whatever you do. Yeah, just pushing things up from the start. That was always an amazing inspiration for me from the first moment on I met you. And one of the things I sort of copied from you, took from you, is the idea, how can I make things better just where I am? This is something that always inspired me about you. Wherever you pop in, things turn out better than they were before. And I think that's very important, that we try to improve the little world that we can influence, the little piece of our society. And sustainability always was something I was always interested in. And that's in our times, and you already pointed to that, in the times we live in, it's very important to point out that it was never a political project. It was always a medical project. And for me and my brother, we're both maxillofacial surgeons. And for us, it was always a scary sight when we left the operation theater and had these heaps and heaps of rubbish leaving behind us, right? Whole baskets of rubbish. And so we started thinking, and that's about 8 to 10 years ago, we started thinking, how can we just avoid that? What can we do differently in our offices, our clinics, and our surgical theaters to make sure we don't have so much waste at the end? Because, and that's always a thought we had in the back of our mind, everything that you as a dentist, that as a medical professional, you throw away at the end of the day is something you paid for in the beginning of the day. All these packages, all these wraps, that they don't come for free. That's part of the price of the product that you pay. So we looked at that and said, well, sustainability is very cool. We want to go like from an office structure. We want to go for eco energy. We want to have solar panels on our rooftop of our office. We want to make sure the easiest thing, right? The light bulbs don't burn all day, although we don't need them. We don't want to have the AC running, although it's cool outside. Stuff like this. And we started the project in our own office like pretty much 8 years ago, and we gave up after half a year because we saw that all this change management that's necessary to turn a just working force that's already highly professional and highly efficient, to train them new tricks is really, really, really difficult. And then we had that sit for a while. And after about a year, we thought, well, all this effort can't be in vain. And second, we still love the idea of practicing a eco-friendly medicine and dentistry, a sustainable approach to it. And then we looked into it. What do we need? We started researching. Now we changed our approach, right? Our first approach was just grab it and do it. That failed. Second approach is sit down and think. And so we sat down, made some literature research, and found, wow, there's nothing. And we started digging deeper. And then we found, okay, there is something. We have amazing data from the UK, for instance, about the footprint of medicine and dentistry in the National Health Service. As they have a very controlled medical system, they can monitor that. We also have data on climate change, how it actually affects human health. And you had that very beautiful introduction where you already pointed out that we have a different world today than it was 8 years ago, right? I mean, the climate crisis still ravaging every day. We have, of course, COVID. I mean, that was a time where you and me, we combined arms and really tried to convince the world that dentistry is not dangerous. And on the other side, dentists are not endangered as we know how to protect ourselves. And we were successful in the end. Remember our podcast that we did together?
Yes.
All our predictions came true, one on one. So, and then there came the war in Ukraine, a new thing, right? We thought we overcame the idea of one country attacking the other for just taking land. I mean, honestly, look at your biography. Look where you were born, where you grew up, where you live now. We live in a cosmopolitan world. We live in a world where we want to interact, where we enjoy talking to people from different backgrounds, different cultures, not because we want to say, well, I'm better than you, but because we want to look at what can they do better than I can do and learn from them and grow together. That's the world we thought we live in. But we found ourselves in a world where that sort of changed. And the idea of sustainability, that was really a pure idea, right? It was not a political idea. It was about behaving in a way where we don't harm the planet more than we actually have to. And for us, it was always clear, if we practice medicine on a high level, we can never be net zero. That simply doesn't exist. For instance, look at DSD. DSD has changed dentistry to the better. The complex mechanisms that you installed make dentists get better outcomes, have happier, healthier, and more satisfied patients. But this comes for a price, both financially and footprint-wise. Advancement causes a footprint. So one of the ideas we got very early in that thought process was, we can't claim medicine can ever become net zero. So we have to learn how to lower our ecological footprint while maintaining or even rising the quality of the care we deliver. And on the same side, look into projects how we can mitigate the footprint that we necessarily will leave when practicing good dentistry and medicine.
Now, Markus,
the core idea of Greenviu, that group.
So let's start with some of the information that you usually share on your lectures about this topic of the harm, the footprint
Right.
that we leave as professionals, because I think that many dentists never even thought about it.
As I did before the time where we started focusing it, right? And you said something very important thing, the word harm. Now, it's so interesting to see what you said in the beginning. Some political areas in our society start completely neglecting that there is a change in climate. And Greenviu, from the research that we did, always came to one conclusion: there is climate change for sure. There's no point in disagreeing with that, as we have literal proof, both in data but also in facts that don't derive from human data. And I think that's a very interesting thought.
Mm-hmm.
All the data that we can have can be manipulated. And we see that. And for those people saying, well, there is nothing like climate change, they have a point. You know why? German television. If you look into the weather forecast, 10 to 15 years ago, temperatures like 30, 35 degrees would get a bright red color on that weather chart,
Mm-hmm.
right? Today, these red colors are used for temperatures on 25 and up already. So it's signaling more alertness, although we use that for lower temperatures. And people recognize that, of course. You can look that up in the internet. You can see that there's some misleading thing happening. But if we look into the other side, and here comes the point with harm, and harm is one of the best things to prove that there's actually climate change happening. Borreliosis, Lyme's disease, one of the most frightening diseases actually vectors can convey to human beings, also very important in dentistry. We can see the spread of Lyme disease, which is transmitted by ticks, by a certain kind of ticks, is coming north. And you can actually see from the patients suffering from that disease where they live, how ticks actually start moving north, where the temperatures start rising in average over the year.
Mm-hmm.
North America is one of the best researched fields for that. And there was data from 2005 that predicted that Lyme disease will reach the Canadian border in the year 2080. Actually, the data showed that it reached the Canadian border in the year 2017. So climate change was a little bit quicker on that, right? Allowing the ticks to survive longer. And we have many vectors like this. For instance, bugs that came from Africa that start living in Italy, in Spain, and southern Germany that transmit malaria. These diseases have never been in these areas before. But climate change allows that. Now, the first data on the harm of climate change to human health comes from the year 1979, the year I was born. Here, the first data was published in Nature that actually the change of climate, the rising of temperatures, together with the effects it has on the atmosphere. I'm not talking stratosphere, I'm talking atmosphere, where the room you sit in right now, that atmosphere. Mm-hmm. How that actually alters human heart diseases, the development of diabetes, the development of allergies and asthma. And this data is really strong. We know today that people living in areas that are hit severely by climate change have an absolutely staggering risk on running into these diseases, a lot more than 20 years ago in the same areas. Mm-hmm. And now we're just talking heart diseases. We're not talking like the soft factors around that, like the loss of soil, the change of the sea levels that forces people to move away from the areas that they could grow crops properly, where they have now to live in areas where they have less food to live on. So the whole ecosystem is coming out of balance in a very quick way. Yeah. And our data is not clear how big the human impact on that is. We simply don't know. We know there is an influence. We definitely can say that. But we also know climate change existed way before humans started emitting carbon dioxide. The difference to former climate change periods is the speed in what it happens. All living creatures can adapt to slow changes. All living creatures have an issue with very quick changes in their surroundings. And we know one of these arguments against climate change is, well, how can it be that there's climate change only today when we find Roman ruins under the glaciers of the Alps? Well, truth is, there have been times in our Earth that have been much warmer than today. But we can show by radiocarbonic methods that the time it took for Earth to warm up was like 10 times at least the time frame that we have today. So it's the speed in what the climate change happens that makes it frightening and also extremely dangerous for us. And don't get me wrong here. Also, the opposite is dangerous. The cooling off of the planet in the same speed would actually be a huge hazard to crops, to agriculture on Earth. So both ways it goes is difficult. So whatever measures we take, we have to make sure we do that very patiently, but also foreseeingly. The decisions we do today impact the climate in the next 30 years, not tomorrow. And that's something that some people have a hard time to understand. If today you don't switch on the light bulb, doesn't mean tomorrow is cooler. Not at all.
Yeah. Hey, Christian, can I ask a question here?
Yes.
So, Markus, I love this. You're giving light to something I think we all feel, whether it be anecdotally or subjectively. Greenviu, your process or your core purpose has three pieces to it: reduce, replace, compensate. You refer to it as compensation projects. That's great. Can you describe that methodology?
Yes. Reducing the footprint is easy, right? Just waste less. And that's the part where economy and ecology go hand in hand. Isn't it interesting that these two words sound so similar? It's the same in German. It's actually in all languages that have at least some Latin roots, these sound very similar because the habit is the same. In the old times, sustainability was a necessity. Waste less so that you have more. That's also good for you and for the planet. So that's the reduce path. Replace is just using more eco-friendly products. And now we go to compensate. Compensate is realizing medicine will always have a significant footprint. We can just reduce it. And now we have to look into projects where we can actually try to mitigate that footprint that we cannot avoid. This is not a carte blanche to waste as much as you want. It is waste less, and what's left, that is what we try to compensate. And we found our partner in the United Nations in their Climate Neutral Now project, where Greenviu is also registered and a official partner of this movement of the United Nations. And here we look into their projects that they run. And usually we will invest into energy projects, because that's the area where you can clearly prove what kind of impact they have. For instance, if you have areas in India that live off burning woods and brown coal to produce their energy, building a water energy plant makes a difference in the footprint of this area by the factor 100, reducing the energy output factor, the carbon dioxide output per energy unit by 100. And this is one of the projects that truly lowers humankind's footprint while sustaining or even improving the availability of the commodity in need. There's various kinds of projects, for instance, reforestation projects and stuff like that. However, we here try to go with the science. And the problem with all these other projects is that we cannot really calculate the effect they have on the footprint of humankind in total. We must not forget that medicine, if it was a country, would be the 5th largest emitter on the planet. Only China, the US, and Brazil, for instance, are bigger. And this shows how huge our footprint as medical professionals in total is. So when we aim for reducing our footprint, finding good partners is essential, as there's a lot of partners out there that offer their deeds, which are probably not the very best in the outcome. We have to be very careful. And for us, it was clear to work with the United Nations directly.
Eco-friendly products, eco-friendly companies became a big trend in marketing. I would say more than 10 years ago, it was a big investment, a positive investment for companies to be able to claim that, right?
Right.
But as you know, not always is true, right? So how do you see dental companies caring about it or are trying to develop solutions that help us all to be more eco-friendly?
You said something very important. If you look in today's advertisements, is eco-friendly something big companies advert right now? Look into car companies, look into computers, look into cosmetics. Do you, in the year 2024, see big marketing campaigns being run towards a brand being eco-friendly? Because I didn't see any anymore.
No.
It was a big thing, as you said.
Yeah.
Look into VW. All these big companies did that.
Yeah.
What's happening right now? Let's look into automotive. VW is at the brink of going completely bankrupt because they completely misinvested with their e-mobility. Nobody buys e-cars. Yes, there are some around. Yes, there are more around than yesterday. That's true. But the scale of new e-cars being bought by the people is dropping, actually. The market is shrinking. Can you explain why?
Mm-hmm. Maybe it's related to what I said before going live, right? So what I mentioned was that when we started to talk about this and I started to learn from Markus about this topic, around 7, 8 years ago, it was a cool topic. It was a topic that everybody would agree, right? It was obvious and everybody wanted to do something about it. Of course, we knew very little, but it was a positive topic. And unfortunately, after pandemic and after this huge political crisis around the world of right against left, left against right, one side decided that sustainability was their main cause, and the other side decided that sustainability was a hoax, right, or a hoax or a lie, right. And they destroyed, both sides destroyed the positive side of all of us moving forward and protecting our planet. As we know, extremism is always bad. It doesn't matter if you're an extremist trying to defend your point of view or an extremist trying to deny the reality, right? And it's crazy that you started your project in a moment where everybody was talking about it, and we had huge expectations that your project would really grow very, very fast. And it did grow at the beginning, and opinion leaders started to embrace. And because of this horrible political movement that we see, suddenly the project is growing much less than it should, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Greenviu is off very well. We have a certain growth, but it's not like we can make that we can double our membership every year. Not at all. And the amount of growth, that's something, if you look into business data, right? And you're a lot more professional into this than I am. But if you look into company development, the actually growth of new customers, new members is a very important key factor in assessing the worth of a company, right? How much it's worth. Yeah. And if you would look at this, Greenviu would be not worth at all, nothing worth at all, because it's been the speed in which we've been growing has been slowing itself all the way down. And
you mentioned something crazy. You said that I'm even getting backlash when I'm talking about Greenviu. People are saying that I'm a communist. I'm a communist
exactly.
because I'm pushing for sustainability, because if I'm pushing for sustainability, I'm supporting the climate change speech. If I'm supporting the climate change speech, I'm supporting the left. And I'm supporting the left, I'm against the right. If I'm against the right, I am a communist.
Exactly. Isn't that cool? I just love it.
It's like laughable if it wasn't sad, right?
Yes, absolutely is so. And that's something we have seen as a major backlash, is the aggressive fight against climate change. People gluing themselves to highways, to airplanes, blocking airports,
destroying art pieces.
Yeah, it's absolutely crazy. It has nothing to do with preventing climate change at all. It's just causing more smog and more issues. And at the same time, every time activist, or let's say eco-terrorists, behave like this, it causes people to deter sustainability. Although sustainability in its heart has a huge economic basis, meaning if I behave sustainably, I will actually make more profit in the long run. So it's just the opposite of communism, but it's hard to communicate that these days. And we're getting into this maelstrom more and more, getting more and more issues around the world. Not only Greenviu. Greenviu is still well off into this, because in medicine and dentistry, you're talking to intelligent people. So even if they have these issues and thinking in the first moments, you can get them off that train pretty quickly, right? But what is not happening right now, and there have been just offices building their reputation on that, very often away from Greenviu, because with Greenviu, we never made our members overpromise things to their patients or to their peer groups. But there have been offices out there that promise to be net zero, that promise to be extremely eco-friendly, and tried to get new patients to come to their offices. And that completely failed. The patients couldn't care less right now. They cared a lot more 2 years ago, but right now they couldn't care less. It is, and in French you would say au contraire, right? On the other side, they expect, if you say I'm a sustainable office, they think, oh, you're worse and more expensive, not coming.
And a communist.
And a communist. Thank you so much. And you see, here's the trouble for the long run development. On the one side, we all know that this is our last time slot we have to slow down the human part affecting climate change. How big that percentage ever might be, right? Because the data is simply not 100% clear here. But we can all agree that less pollution is good.
Yeah.
Whatever consequences in 100 years that might have, because probably, well, I hope you might live, but I think I might not live long enough to see that effect, right? But it's our duty, especially as medical professionals, to follow our rule, do not harm. That's one of our biggest rules as medical and dental professionals. And that, of course, also includes our environment. Number one, as the environment is a living piece of our world as well. And second, because as we learned in the beginning of this podcast, climate change is a negative effect on many very serious diseases.
Kirk?
Well, I mean, my lingering question, I love this conversation, Markus, is I always want our listeners to take some kind of action. And I know Greenviu has a great community and a great effort, but I also separate this in my mind between the macro and the micro. Politically, sometimes for me, I know it's important, but it can be exhausting. So speak to the dentist that might be listening to this. What can I do in my world? Number two, what can I do to help the world? And number three, how can you help me as a provider with an infrastructure or a community or even a methodology or a thought process? Anything you would say to that?
Yeah, thank you so much. And that's also part of the question from Christian from earlier that I did not answer properly about companies in the dental field going forward for sustainable. sustainability. So let's take, for instance, Strawman. Strawman is one of our partners from the beginning on. We have several partners. You can see them on our website. And we just allowed companies to become partners where we actually have an insight into their sustainability process. And Strawman is one of the companies that really took to their heart, what can we do to become more sustainably? Camlock, for instance, another company that worked so hard on this. Henry Schein is working on this. So the big companies, some of the big companies are really putting energy and effort into this. But whereas some companies such as Strawman believe and incorporate this as their company DNA, regardless of the economic output it might bring to them, we can see on the market that many products that were made to be more sustainable in medicine that we offered to our members about 2 or 3 years ago, these products are not available anymore because they didn't sell. And here comes the bad news. The market is a lot slower than we all thought in adapting all those steps that could be made. And number one is, of course, look into companies. What can I do tomorrow to become more sustainable? Christian said that we have lots of lectures. So if you become a member of Greenviu, right now, not a lot is happening, to be very honest with you, because we are basically reassorting what we're doing. Because the market changed so much in the last, let's say, 8 to 9 months, that we are reevaluating so many products that right now we tell our members, well, hold your foot. It's going to be about a quarter a year, and then we can come out with new information. So there is a free membership version of Greenviu. Become a friend of Greenviu. It's just registering yourself on the website. Then you will receive the newsletter, and we'll keep you updated on what's new in true sustainability in medicine dentistry. Second, when you register for this, we have a guide, 11 steps for tomorrow, that all the offices can take, that costs you absolutely nothing, but save you money in running your office and make you more sustainable. And upmost on this is, of course, control over the use of your consumables and energy output. This is epitome in this, and it's, of course, the easiest step. If you look into my office, we have Germany is one of the most expensive places, thanks to our green government, one of the most expensive places to buy energy in. We pay about 15 to 20,000 euros just for electricity a year. And here comes the funny thing. We're fighting with our local authorities for more than 4 years now to be able to install solar panels on our office building. We were not allowed yet. We're just going to do that now without the official permission. But on the one side, it saves me heaps of money. And on the other side, it makes me a lot more sustainable in my office, right? So these are the basic things that everybody can do. Second is train your team to watch out for that. Because if we look into the footprint of dentistry, and this is something, Chris, in the webinar we did together, this is the first time I ever presented this data, we can prove that for dentistry, about 60% of the footprint of a dental office come from the commuting and the traveling of workers and patients. 60% of our footprint come from that. So if you have a smart appointment management, for instance, if you use digital tools to make as much diagnostics in one step as possible, from scans to x-rays to imaging to DSD, then you end up with the patient having to come back to your office a lot less. If you need 10 appointments to finish your treatment or 5 appointments to finish your treatment, has the biggest impact on your eco footprint of your office that you can actually alter without changing the quality of the treatment. So these steps are probably the easiest to follow head on.
I was surprised when you first mentioned to me this, because of course it brings an extra value to the digital workflow that I was teaching without me thinking at that time about it. Meaning that if you're able to do most of your devices through digital means, you don't have to ship these devices. You don't have to transport these devices. You're sending digital devices and manufacturing them locally. Chairside milling, chairside printing is extremely ecological on that regard, because it allows us to avoid shipping stuff around and moving things with regular transportation. Also, becoming more efficient through digital means that you need less appointments. Monitoring the treatments digitally also allows you to treat patients in less time with less useless appointments, right? Using digital to be more precise, to reduce repetition, redoing adjustments back and forth, more appointments as well. So that makes us more effective and more efficient. Being more efficient is very ecological. That's the conclusion here. When we are more efficient, we are more ecological, and of course, it's better for our business, it's better for the patient. But it's something that we should at least talk to the team, right? I don't see many practices talking about that. Never, ever. Just keep that in mind. Every time I think about sustainability, I immediately, during the next 1 or 2 hours after I was thinking about it, I see myself doing little things that makes me more eco-friendly, right? Not throwing a piece of paper that can still be reutilized, not wasting plastic for useless things that I would just do it in the past. So just the fact of talking about it is already bringing huge benefit, and I think we should all bring that topic more often among the team. Just a little reminder to everybody, let's be more sustainable.
Couldn't agree more.
And how do you see the project moving forward, Markus? How do you see we pushing the industry a little bit more, or bringing more dentists on board? How can we help you?
Well, that's so kind. I think the most important thing is just spread the word that sustainability has nothing to do with green politics. It's a total different ballpark, and sometimes they lead to similar results. As the idea behind sustainability is, of course, being easier on our environment, at the same time being better business-wise. What we will change in Greenviu, and this is coming probably in January, is we will offer different approaches to that, more individually tailored to the various offices, so that you can basically be the prime member that we offer now, with the big calculations that we can actually assess your office, see what we can improve in the long run. So making a thorough ecological and economical check for an office. This is what we will continue to offer. However, we will also offer smaller approaches to that, especially for offices that understand that in the long run, the topic will be re-emerging. Sustainability rightfully is not just a trend, it's called a mega trend. It's something that whatever dents it might get in the process, or what other trends might be laying over it for a short amount of time, it will be re-emerging. Yes. So, and there's two reasons for that. Number one, every year the climate problem is getting bigger. It's slowly getting bigger, then it's getting bigger. So the amount of denial will shrink. And as humans are, the bigger the catastrophe, the more people will be crying out, why didn't you do anything about that, right? Wherever they themselves have been neglecting it completely. So the offices that have been focusing on sustainability may be a little more quiet than we have been 2 years ago, with some offices being very, very aggressive with that. And we always encouraged our members to be a little quiet about it, just be sustainable and let some ads do the talking, but don't overdo it. Maybe this is just the right approach for the situation right now. And then there's certain contracts that all the governments many governments around the world that are organized in the United Nations. More than 75 governments agreed on these climate protocols. So this means that at the end of next year, end of 2025, in about 18 months, all these signing governments of these treaties will have to implement laws to lower the footprint of their respective societies. And part of this will, of course, be monitoring all kinds of offices and forcing them basically to look into what kind of footprint they have and trying to reduce it. But as governments around the world are working, trying to implement probably new taxes on that. So those offices that can then show a history of reducing their footprint and being able to prove that by a neutral agency like Greenviu will be in a big advantage. So the topic will be reappearing. We will just have the task to learn from the developments to make Greenviu on the one side more efficient for our members, and the second side be ready for the new developments.
Love it. I love it. This has been a great conversation already, and I love, Christian, that you brought Markus, to the forum. And I know a lot of people are going to want to find out more. And if you're listening, we're going to put links down into the show notes. It's Greenviu, GREENVIU.com, and you can check out more. But let's do this. Can we do some final thoughts? Markus, maybe your final thoughts, and then Christian, your final thoughts before we say goodbye to everybody else.
Thank you so much. Christian said some very smart things in the beginning. It's about the battle of the politics in the world right now. And I think brilliant minds like Christian, all these opinion leaders that rightfully rose to that position through constant work and constant development, we all know that there is no right and left, good and bad in politics. We know that we have to follow real politics that is something that results in something beneficial for the people. So let's aim into helping our little worlds around us getting better, understanding that ecological thoughts, sustainability have nothing to do with politics, and it's beneficial for all the people in the end of the day.
Well said. Christian.
From my side, I just want to say that I really hope that we will all just listen to the obvious truth and start trying to find excuses just because it's more comfortable, and understand that it's in our hands to do things, that we cannot blame governments and leaders. It's in our hands, and we need to do our part. And even though it does sound a little cliche, and at the moment it sounds political, it's not cliche, it's not political, it's about our near future. And things are moving fast. And it's very sad to see how many people don't even think about it.
Yeah, so well said. I love this conversation for so many reasons. It's been enlightening to understand and know that there's a resource for this. Markus, I'm just going to encourage you to keep giving voice to what you're already doing. And I think we have a responsibility not only to leave the world in a better place, but our profession in a better place. And if you're listening to the podcast, just make sure you reach out to Greenviu, follow a little bit more. We're going to add all of these things to the show notes. Thank you guys for both being here. That was an awesome episode. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Markus.
Thank you.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Stick around while we say goodbye to everybody else, but thank you guys for listening to the Best Practices Show podcast. Part of the jam around here is to help you think bigger and better about the world, your practice, and your life. And so I hope you guys enjoyed today's podcast. Keep sending us suggestions for things you guys want to see. Christian has some even more amazing thoughts for the future and guests, and we'll keep lining those up. So until we see you guys next time, or you hear from us next time, keep watching or keep listening to the Best Practices Show.